Good morning, everyone. How are we all today? I hope you're fine. Let's have a wee look and see who's in. Scott Haynes, Hugh Smith, Aki's Mad, Kirsty Hamilton, Neil McLean, Reagan Elite. Good morning, Reagan. His programme goes live right after mine. Jim Soralba, Stephen Nicol, Rosemary McGregor, John McGowan. Good morning, John. Hope you need us are well. Good morning, Linda. Kirsty Hamilton, Graham Beanie, Anna Chisholm. Good morning, Christina. Good morning, Margaret Noakes. You're here live for a change, are you? Or was that somebody else? Anyway, good morning, Margaret Hitchens. Good morning, Martin Hibby. The other Davies waiting on Boris Johnson defecting to reform. Morning, Jamie Dodger. June Dalrymple. John O'Rourke. I think that's me back at top. Well, let's go down the week again. Anyway, I hope you're all fine this morning. And I can see it's no raining in Portobello. No wind either. Nice one. Morning, Kirsty Folds. Morning, Rosemary. Desiree. Heather. Fiona. How are you? Andy Duck Mel. Good morning, Barbara. Morning, Class Action. Morning, Ali Watson. And Paul Rankin. John Baxter. Right, we better go on with this. We're here saying hello to everybody all day because we're up over the 100 mark. Right, so Sunday truck, Davey at the truck and at home in his office on the 28th of the 1st, 2026, where it is currently 6 degrees. A lovely, clear morning. The right-hand side of my face is getting the sun from my south-facing front room windows at the moment. And it's bringing a nice gentle heat. Charlie Cat here lying on the tables enjoying it. Anyway, where were we? Aye. Today's high will be 8 degrees. And there's the odd shower in the forecast for here in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, but it'll be light apparently. And the humidity is at 83%. Wind speed is at between 4 and 12 mile an hour. Sunset is at 16:40, and since I started introducing the sunset times, you'll probably realise it started half a week and a half ago or so at 16:26. It's now 16:40. It would appear that the days are fair drawn out. Anyway, there's no pollen count, it's the winter. Right, first up this morning, folks, we've got the Scotsman. What's the Scotsman got? Let's have a look. Well, that's not the bloody Scotsman. We want to aim on us, but looks it. Why wasn't that the Scotsman? Right, here we go, the Scotsman. I don't know why that happens. I put them all up in order and all of a sudden they're shuffled. Grieving families vindicated in scathing university probe. So what's this all about? Well, come back a few years ago, the School of Geography at Glasgow University told a young fella called Ethan Brown in his 4th semester that they wouldn't be giving him a grade. The young man was so upset and in despair, he unfortunately went and took his own life. The family said it was systematic failure because on review he should have been graded. The university said there wasn't any systematic failure. So Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education was sent in by the Qualifications Authority, and they went through the School of Geography's systems, and it would appear there was plenty systematic failures. And Amir Anwar, representing the family, says the family now feel vindicated. Now, the recommendations being made by Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education in Scotland. The university says it will implement them in full. I wonder how many grading errors there are a year in the higher education sector. As this is the first time I've heard this story, and it's a few years old, I would say there can't be that many. I know there was a hoo-ha a few years back during the pandemic when people couldn't graduate, but it didn't mean they didn't get their degree. So this is a pretty sad story. And it was found that systematic failures meant this boy, who should have been graded, didn't get graded. And after 4 years of study, to be told you're not going to get a degree, bloody crushing blow. A bloody crushing blow. Right, then with the Scotsman. And after that should be the Herald, if I can find the fucking thing. Where it's meant to be. That's good news. The Herald has for us today: Robinson under attack over standing still on arts funding. In the budget, 100 million quid was announced for the arts. Well, there's a pledge, a long-term pledge to spend 100 million in the arts. One or two. Couldn't make it out quite for the story. But the budget, the fucking ink's not even dry on it. And when you get right down to it, should the public sector be funding the arts? Yes. We should be funding the drama schools and things like that. Should we be supplementing productions? No. Should we be sponsoring runs? No. They should be producing art that we want to go and fucking see. Whether that be ballet, music, literature, poetry, whatever. If you can't make a buck at it, and you've chosen that as your profession, you shouldn't be looking at the state to subsidise you. There are things we should subsidise, like the National Orchestra and the National Ballet. But after all, they've got their name on it. That's my take on it. If you're not producing something people want to watch, don't expect the rest of us to subsidise your efforts. Bammy fucking headline. We're going to get something like that a wee bit later on and all. We'll be done with the Herald. Up should be the fail. Here we go. As Chancellor Rachel Reeves cuts business rates south of the border, SNP leaves pubs and last chance saloon. Now, I did say we were going to get something like the arts story a wee bit further in. Well, this is it. Apart from it being a fucking lie, of course. Because for small businesses, the business rates come down to 48.1%, and the threshold for qualifying for small business, full small business relief has dropped from 20 grand to 12, as far as I can tell. So the SNP haven't left the pubs and entertainment sector and restaurant sector or culinary sector in last chance of saloon at all. They did reduce business rates. And there's a lot of these pubs and that as small businesses, they're not viable anymore. My local pub recently closed after a couple of 100 years. Why is that? Well, nobody drinks in the pub anymore. And the pub wasn't offering anything that was drawing people in. It was a typical public bar. You either utilised it or you didn't. And as Scotland's relationship with alcohol is changing, especially among the middle classes, pub culture isn't really that much of an interest for us anymore. Nobody's wanting to stand at a bar quaffing huge amounts of alcohol. We want entertainment and food thrown in with it. And if you're not offering that, you're going to the wall. If you are offering that, you should be able to pay your fucking rates. If you can't pay your rates, you go to the wall. Simple as that. It just means you're offering to the public, like the artists, isn't up to fucking scratch. And why should we subsidise that? I moved into this village 18 years ago. Sorry, 21 years ago. Or 20 years ago, something like that. There was 2 pubs in the village. The one at the far end of the village wasn't offering anything. It was your typical old spit and sawdust, and you could still smoke at the time. Smoking ban came in. People still going to the pub. Then the next generation coming up behind us weren't interested in a pub. And the generation that's come through the new, they can't afford to go to the fucking pub. But pub culture is over. But the SNP didn't leave pubs and small businesses in last chance saloon. They did drop the business rates. In fact, I've got the changes up here. I checked it out this morning, so we'll have a wee look, shall we? Because I wanted to see what the measures were in the budget for small businesses. 26-27 Scottish budget proposes reducing business rates, poundage back to 48.1%, basic rate to 50. That's the basic rate, 53.5% to intermediate rate, and for the larger establishments, 54.8%. Key changes for 26-27 include new smaller small business bonus scheme, threshold reduced to 12,000 from 20,000, and a support package for hospitality, retail and leisure. So it would appear that the headline in the Daily Field was wrong, but we're going to get another example of that further in. So them's the facts, folks. The Scottish Government has tried to put support in place for smaller businesses. But if you're not offering something that the public want, don't try and sell it to the public. Pub culture is over. Nobody wants to congregate in huge amounts at bars and stuffy pubs. You want a decent sized facility. You want the option to be able to eat, be entertained. And there's hundreds of them around now. Hundreds of them. So the bar in the corner is going to go to the wall, folks. Simple as that. Absolutely simple as that. Pub culture is over. Like saying, I've spent any long-term, I never went for a night out in a pub since we were in our 40s. We'd always go to a restaurant now. Or a facility that had entertainment and food and alcohol. There's plenty of them round about me. Why would I want to go to a stuffy wee bar round the corner? With a jukebox, a cigarette machine, and a pool table. No my idea of a night out anymore. Right. So let's get the Scottish Daily Field away and see what the Lonely Ragdy Express has got for us this morning. This seems to be dragging out a wee bit. I better try and get the accelerator on. Regan a Week goes live at 11. Right, the Lonely Ragdy Express has former health chief exposes Scottish Government role in deadly water crisis. Nat ministers did pressure scandal hospital chiefs. For a start, that scandal hospital was rated the best hospital in Europe. The best hospital in Europe. The most modern facility in Europe. Interesting that, eh? Scandal-ridden hospital. But you know, this is just conflating the story because, absolutely right, The Scottish Government did put pressure on Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board in 2019. The Royal Hospital for Children's Cancer Care Unit. They did. They also put pressure on them. Our bad management and bad maintenance. They even threatened to put, by 2021, they were threatening to put the health board into special measures. So this is just conflating two different stories. One story about pressure for opening the hospital, and another story for pressurising the board for poor management, poor maintenance, poor running of the facility. So there's a half a truth in that. But those of us who've been around for the last 10 years and watched that hospital get to a point where it's fully operational, we all knew there was going to be problems. It's the biggest facility in Europe. It's the most modern facility in Europe. And it's never been done before. But when you look at the record of the hospital, especially when it comes to hospital-acquired infections, it's still better than your average general. And it's a super hospital. Fucking nonsense. But yes, at one point, the health minister was all over Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board like a bagged rash because it was a new hospital getting up and running. Nobody had ever done it before to that scale. There was bound to be error. 11 years on, the facility runs like that. Well, Mr. Million will tell you when he's back on Thursday about how superb they are. James, one of your viewers, works there. A great facility. But never been done before. And in 2021, the Scottish Government ordered a public inquiry to learn the lessons of opening such a facility, which isn't a bad thing. But it had never been done before. Knowing that scale, that size, never mind the building, the Death Star they call it, because it looks like a star. But there's a Royal Hospital for Children in there. There's a maternity unit there. There's a stroke unit there. There's all sorts there. It's fucking massive. It's like a town on its own right. Of course there was going to be error. It had never been done before. This is just SNP bad nonsense. And it is pretty tiring. Because common sense doesn't come into it. This is clickbait nonsense. Those of us who have been around over the last 10 years know through the headlines of the last 10 years the problems that Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board have had in maintenance management the facility. It's a brand new facility, never been done before on such a scale here in Scotland. 1,662 patients it takes. It is huge. And it covers so many specialities. Unbelievable, actually. Right, that was the only rag the express, eh? So, next up we'll get the Times. I take the Express in. No, I haven't. Next up we have the Times. What's the Times got for us this morning? Fake jobs for sale to cheat system on migrant visas. Now, let me correct that headline, folks. Cuts to public services mean jobs are not being done correctly. So what is this story? The story is that there's agents out there applying for fake visas to the Home Office, claiming that the people they were bringing in were going to work for established, reputable companies. And the first thing that came into my mind was, Oh, they're selling these fake visas at 20 grand a pop, by the way. Capitalism at its best. This is neoliberalism at its best. Find a niche in a market and sell. But anyway, the problem doesn't lie on fake applications to get fake visas to get people in. The problem lies in the staff at the Home Office. So one of these agents fires in a request for a visa for so-and-so from such and such a profession for my company. First thing that fucking agent at the Home Office should do is pick up its phone my company and ask if we have hired an agent to bring in such and such a person with such a special skill. So these mistakes shouldn't happen, because that should be the first fucking thing that happens when that file drops on the desk of the civil servant to approve that visa. Now, 20 grand a pop, is a civil servant getting a backhander? I doubt it. I'd just say 15 years, 16 years, 17 years of austerity and cuts to the public service mean that the people who work processing these visa applications are probably jumping stages and bypassing the basics. File hits the desk, civil servant. It says that my firm is using this agency to find such and such a person with such and such skills. Pick up a phone my company. Are you looking for such and such a skilled person? Are you using such and such an agent? Aye. Okay, stage one, tick. Move on for there. Thanks for the super sticker. Thank you very much, Greg. Was it? Aye, Greg. Thank you. I mean, this is basics. Basics. Now, apparently these are established, well-known companies. Surely, the first thing the Home Office does is pick up the phone and ask them if they're looking for such a skill from abroad, and are you using this agent to get it? Wow. You know, they deserve to get fucked over if they're can't even do the basics. People will find loopholes in the system, but when the people there to protect the system are not doing the basics, the system's done. Knackered. Right, next up we have the Tory graph, I think it is. Yep, Tory graph. Starmer-led witch hunt against Iraq veterans. I happen to know a bit about this story, folks. This goes back to 2007 and Starmer and Lord Keimer. They were inundated at the Crown Prosecution Service with complaints from families for Iraq of war crimes. So in order to clarify what a war crime was and wasn't, because back then, you got to remember, Starmer was posing as a human rights lawyer. Him and Lord Keimer went to get clarity from the courts. And that clarity from the courts meant that a couple of hundred cases of reported war crimes in Iraq were reopened and reinvestigated. Now, as far as I know, very few people have been prosecuted. But when it comes to soldiers' behaviour in the theatre, mistakes happen, and then you get people who are just full of hate and they commit war crimes. Or sometimes the war crimes committed out of fear. Doesn't change the fact you should be controlled enough not to be that scared that you're going to do something like that. But mistakes happen in the theatre. And the fact that these cases were reinvestigated, well, it would have been the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. But as we know, Starmer's getting a beating. And to be fair, he deserves it. Right, that was the Tory graph. Next up's the Guardian, which used to be the bastion of the left, of course. Now it's just sort of dead centre. Mass murder. Medics reveal grim reality of Iran's hidden death toll. Well, I'm just going to give you a short story on this. And it's going to do with Iran as a liberal society discovered oil. Regime change was orchestrated from the West, desperate to control that oil. Regime change happened, but it wasn't what the West fucking wanted. And they still never get their hands in the oil. So what did they do? They banned sales of it. They sanctioned the place. So from a liberal society under the royal family, wasn't perfect, but it was liberal and sectarian, and not sectarian, what do you might call it? Secular society. The West wanted regime change for control of oil. Where have we heard this story before? And here we are today with the fucking mess we're going to the Middle East. So that's a short history of Iran. From liberal society to the mess we see today, courtesy of the West. All right, after that Guardian, we have the National. Remember, there's an interesting headline this morning. I better get a move on. Major win and challenge to Palestine action ban. Go ahead given for Scottish judicial review. Well, this is going to drag out and end up in the Supreme Court, but that is interesting. Because I dare say the Scottish faculty of advocates and the inner sanctum of the Court of Session will find what Labour did to be illegal. Labour will appeal it to the Supreme Court and we'll see where it goes from there. Next up, the I. This one I'm going to correct, and I'm not going to be gentle about it. Pubs U-turn to save Britain's locals from extinction, but no help for restaurants facing April's tax hikes. Let me correct that fucking headline. Pubs U-turn to save England's locals from extinction, but no help for restaurants facing April's tax hikes. What the Chancellor is doing in England has no bearing on Scotland and Wales. None. So it's no Britons. It's England. But it shows you the arrogance of these editors down that road. Or the ignorance. Mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. So that's that fixed. England's locals. Nothing to do with Scotland, nothing to do with Wales. Next, the Metro. 6 years of chemo when I only needed 6 months. This one's interesting. New cancer consultant comes in at University Hospital Coventry, is reviewing cases and discovers that this lady, Samantha Smelled, I think it was, had surgery 6 years ago on a tumour. They couldn't get it all out, so she's prescribed monthly chemo sessions. They were supposed to last 6 months. Apparently, it had been around for 6 years. The new consultant picked it up, got her in for examination, and said, "Your tumour's stable. Stop." Crack of your story, that one. Absolute belter. Yeah. How did the existing consultant not realise that she'd been in for chemo for 6 fucking years before the new kid comes in? They've been pumping their body full of toxins for 6 fucking years. Don't fancy her chances. Right, and on to the last one. On to the Star. What's the Star go to? Star's got one for the punters out there. Here we go. Regan, sorry if I'm biting into your programme a wee bit. Because I know you're in the audience or what. And they're off aboard. Away at the races. And apparently there's now a Cheltenham package deal to Benidorm for punters. I don't know what the package deal would be or what would be involved in that package deal. I'm not a punter. So I really wouldn't have a clue. Couldn't tell you one end of a book you slipped to the other. Them's the facts. If I'm going to be gambling, it's a lottery ticket or a scratch card. I'm not a punter. Never been a punter. Never been interested in being a punter. But if you're a punter, apparently you can get a package deal, a Cheltenham themed package deal to Benidorm now. Hope the Spanish take it well. Hey. Right, guys, that's it for this morning. Be back tomorrow morning, 10:30. Don't be late or you'll be on the naughty step. All right. Eyes on the prize. Latest polling shows the SNP one short of an overall majority. We need the people in the northeast and in the southwest to vote 100% SNP 1 and 2 to break the system. We need a list MSP to get out of the line. Or the other thing we need is some of those nice kids in the Greens to walk the floor temporarily so that we're out of the line. Catch you later, guys. Bye for now.